Thank you everybody who's joining today. I know we are expecting some more to be joining, but we'll get started. I just want to say thanks, and I'm going to do a little introduction. First of all, my name is Julia Richter. I am the implementation coach at the Choose Love Movement and oversee and direct our workshops. And I'm so grateful to have Howie Glasser here today. Howie is the founder, creator, and developer of the Nurtured Heart Approach. He's a voice of greatness for children so that they can ultimately find their own voice of greatness. Howard's background is in family treatment, clinical studies, and educational leadership. His formal studies, along with direct experience with the most intense and challenging children, form the basis of the approach that he has now brought to many. He has been referred to as one of the most influential persons working to reduce children's reliance on psychiatric medications. And his work is inspiring a growing number of educational and treatment initiatives worldwide and has been featured on CNN, Esquire, and more. Howie is the author of 15 books. I read one of them, which is beautiful, very, very profound, including The Transforming the Difficult Child, a long-standing bestseller of intense and challenging children. He is a sought-after keynote speaker in areas of treatment, education, and inspiring greatness. Howie teaches Nurtured Heart Approach certification training intensives at the Nurtured Heart Institute, as well as teaching at University of Arizona's Integrative Medicine Program and the Zuckerman School of Public Health. His upcoming book is an unfolding of the Nurtured Heart Approach from the inside out. And his most fun endeavor was being the executive producer of an award-winning documentary, Mantra Sounds into Silence. How cool is that? What a beautiful bio. Thank you, Howie, for being here. Thank you, everyone who's joining. And I'm just going to hand it on over to you, Howie.
It is such a pleasure to hear that. I haven't heard that introduction. And some of that in a while. I haven't thought about that recently. And maybe my best qualification is having grown up as an intense and resistant kid. I'll call it difficult. Everybody else called it difficult, so why not? And nobody would know my work if they it's not something you stumble on unless you have a difficult child. Then sometimes word's out on the street. So I'm going to do my best to describe the Nurtured Heart Approach in concert with a program I love called Choose Love. And I've gotten to know Scarlett Lewis. I've gotten to be a fan of this work. And I feel my work just dovetails so beautifully because, I have my interesting ways of getting past barriers that some kids have because of how their intensity has informed their journey. So we think we're saying one thing and they're digesting it differently. And so how do you penetrate those barriers? How do you insert these great qualities for you guys? Front and center is courage, gratitude, forgiveness, compassion in action, nurturing, healing, love. How do we bring kids to the place? How do we journey with them where, in effect, we can say to them, here's how you are choosing love right now. Here's the evidence. And have them not only digest it, but have that over time become a source of inner wealth. So, I'm going to start with, because of the title, I'm going to start with a fun proposition is that the world currently thinks of intensity as the enemy. How dare I say that? Well, I've followed this track for a long time. And, there's like a running joke that the New York Times has had this copy and paste article about ADHD for the longest time. I mean, I've spoken to the author. I mean, it changes tiny bits at a time, but basically it's going to be, 6% of the population has ADHD. Oh no, it's now 8%. Now it's down to 7%. And but it just turns out that it's subjective because 20% of boys in West Virginia have ADHD. There are pockets where it's epidemic, and it was always more boys than girls. But now, lo and behold, pharmaceutical companies have found their way to the committees that are in charge of the DSM, Diagnostic Statistical Manual, which runs the show for a lot of practitioners, and have found interesting ways to now it's catching up with girls. So where I come in is, yes, there are symptoms. Absolutely. There are kids. I mean, yes, there are kids who are hyperactive, impulsive, and otherwise of concern, otherwise frustrating. Let me sum it up by saying, yes, there are kids who drive us crazy or frustrate us to no end. Maybe that's the supreme corralling of the symptoms. However, I want to just, I can't overstate that the normal way of handling this at this point, if the school looks at a kid and says, and calls a parent and says, your child is intense, or your child is experiencing difficulties, they're symptomatic, the expectation is do something about it. Well, maybe the parent has had their hands full already. Maybe they don't know what to do about it. Well, then do something about it. And the implication is have an evaluation. Well, 80% of the time you have an innocent evaluation. It's not innocent. The next thing you know, there are recommendations. Well, what's the front and center recommendation 30 years ago and in 2022, and I'm telling you it's going to be true in 2023, is medication A, B, C, or D. And it's just, that's how symptomatology gets clustered, and constellations that inform diagnosis. And any way you call it, it's really becomes pathology. And I'm concerned about this because, yeah, medications give us a blessed illusion of improvement. There is an appearance of moderating intensity, and if that's on your plate, oh goodness, yes, that's meaningful. And I get it that people so want to reel the child in and be helpful. But because I know this field so intimately and these kids so intimately, I am greatly concerned, not only because of the side effects of medication, and before too long, sometimes, very often, the meds have meds, and it goes off to the races and it has a life of its own, but because the meta message to the child is something is wrong with you because of your intensity. We need to make it go away because you can't handle it. We can't handle it, meaning your parents, your teachers, everybody can't handle it. And to me, it's a disturbing message that just naturally occurs without words, because we've just come to this point in the world where this is how we dial it in. And I'm going to contend that intensity is a gift. And intensity is really just our life force. And on any given day, we're intense. Julia, I've gotten to know you a little bit, and you channel your intensity into all you accomplish. And it's a wonderful thing. If tomorrow you woke up and your intensity was gone, I dare say you'd probably miss it. You know, might it rain on your parade of all the things you do, all the things you accomplish, all your dreams and hopes? Absolutely. Your passion. We might have trouble getting out of bed if our intensity's gone. So it's the same to me, it's commensurate with life force. We need our intensity. And I am concerned that we just so often unceremoniously thwart life force by medication. And I think what people really want anyway is transformation. That's what they've always wanted all along. I'll say it this way, excuse my cough. It's just, I've been teaching all that, is if you've ever raised your voice to a child, if you've ever reprimanded a child, if you've ever gotten, and said, come on, if you ever gotten urgent in that way, then you wouldn't do that if it was, if you didn't believe, if it was a child who had no ability to change, if the child was severely on the autism spectrum, for instance, and there was severe organicity, we might privately feel that way, but we wouldn't take that route. I think we only take that route because it belies what we really want. We want profound change. And we can't get there in this way. I think there is an alternative way to get there where we collaborate with intensity, where we to get things started, we usher intensity in by way we interact. And in many ways, which I'll do justice to as best I can, we send a very different message. Here's how you're using your energies. And in our case here tonight, for the purpose of this title and your incredible movement, here's how you're using your energies to choose love now, right now. Here's what I see. And here's what you're doing. And here's what I'm appreciating. So I'll come up for air and breathe and drink water. So since this is a relatively short presentation, and then we're going to open it up to questions and hopefully answers, what I want to do is use stories to transport you into feeling this approach from the inside out. And I think stories are great because if I say them well enough, they'll be somewhat memorable. And if I say them well enough, kind of buried in the story is the possibility of just enough hiccup to go, oh, wow, that makes sense. I see the glitch and I see the hope all at the same time. So, I'm gonna maybe surprise you with this. I'm saying this metaphorically, but it's a great way to introduce this. Is just gonna propose, what if we were a kid's favorite toy? Think about how kids are when they get a toy. Hopefully it's worth what we paid for it. They usually will quickly, once they realize, wow, I wonder what promise this holds, they'll put aside whatever they're doing and they'll dive in and unwrap it and they'll explore. Kids go into discovery mode. And, hopefully there are features of a toy that captivate them and entertain them and educate them in whatever whatever the intention was. And then, you know, typically there are features of the toy that do nothing for them, maybe for other people, but for them, no traction. And if you've ever watched a kid in that mode, they probably will go back to that feature by accident as many times as they need to, or go back on purpose to see if it holds up, as that's the truth of it. It doesn't do anything for me. But once they discern that, identify what it is that's bothering them, or not interesting to them, they kind of go, they take it off. They unfriend it. And so, and they stick to the features that do it for them. Think about us for a second as toys. All the things we could do, all the ways we could mobilize, all the actions we could take, all the movements, all the ways we think and feel, and our emotional, it's not only the physical components, that are only limited by what handicaps us, but I shouldn't say only, but along with that, on any given day, we could be hopped up by whatever's swirling around in our minds, in our emotional state, and in a way, we're so ultimately interesting because, we might cluster things together. Oh yeah, I was frustrated 14 times today, or 44 times today. And it may seem like it fits a general description, but it's never the same. We're never the same person. So if you think about it from the child's point of view, it's the ultimate entertainment center, interactive entertainment center. So hold that thought for a second and consider a kid who's more intense than the next kid. And they're merely in a classroom or a home that's governed, so to speak, by normal, conventional, traditional approaches. And this kid's resistance and intensity kind of sparks at times, and all that adult has is normal ways of interacting. My contention is that kids are going to watch this toy under a microscope, us. They're going to see the truth of our energy. We may think we're doing one thing, but they're going to read the energetic truth of our interactions, and they may very well come to some conclusion or impression that we are so much more present, alive, exciting, animated when things are going wrong. And when things are going right, we're relatively boring. Our positives, our normal array of positives, yay, good job, way to go, thank you, are energetically pale. So if I say, Julia, thank you so much. Shay, great job, way to go, and etc. And I go through my litany of those normal ways. Like, I'm in a room of highly intelligent people, and I'd wager that nobody really knows what I'm appreciating. These statements are inherently vague as compared to how explicit we get and vibrant we get, how richly languaged we are when things go wrong. We're poets when things go wrong. And, I'm not saying anybody ever would give a child $100 bill for breaking a rule. but accidentally all the time in our desire to manage a kid and move a kid into making good decisions, we're doing that we're accidentally, inadvertently doing that all the time. We demonstrate to kids that there's a greater gift of us for negativity. So I'm going to give you an example. We say, and we really are devotees of values like respect. There's probably nobody in this room who's anti-respect. And when do we normally raise the issue of respect? When's it come up? I mean, you know, a counselor may go in a room and say, hey, here's the beauty of being respectful. Here are 10 reasons to be respectful. That probably won't get much traction with difficult kids or resisting kids, as you probably all know. So, you know, in the normal cadence of life, when do we bring forward the concept of being respectful, especially for challenging kids? It's when they're not being respectful. So on one hand, we're verbalizing, it's so important to be respectful. It's going to help you in your life, in your relationships, in your career. And depending on how a child's digesting this, they're drinking in, and especially possible over time, that even though my parents are saying they love respect, they actually love disrespect, because that's when they're giving the gift to them. It's upside down. Nobody would do that on purpose. To me, it's a function of normal, conventional, traditional ways of interacting. So this toy is so much more animated and compelling and energized when things go wrong. And that gets transmitted into, you know, to the kid as you're more meaningful, valued, celebrated for your problems. No, that's not what's intended. So I'm gonna give you an example here. I'm gonna show a very quick video, and you're gonna see that this mom is trying to set a limit, and she's limited in her repertoire. You know, she doesn't know how to get out of the what she's waltzed herself into. So here it goes. You'll see.
Wait, no. No. Hayes, don't do it. No. Don't do it. No. Don't do it. Don't do it. No. 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 Don't even think of no. Don't even think about no. 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 No.
So what we see, I mean, we only know this half a minute slice of life for this family, but I could tell you, his name is Reed. He's reading the energy in the room. And he's slowly but surely dialing in, oh, wow, I got my hand on the dial. I'm in charge. And I could get mom to, all she's got is raising the volume, raising the volume. Have you ever seen somebody raise the volume on parenting or in a classroom? And if we're limited to our little repertoire of normal, traditional ways of anything, especially setting limits, then we continue to amp up the gift of us, unbeknownst to ourselves. And he's going, wow, I'm a master of this. I'm good at this. I got it. So and what's running the show here, let's say mom is the most loving person and she would do things differently if she knew differently, but she doesn't. And the it's kind of her fear is running the show. I don't know if it's a glass of water or whatever it is. I don't know what the floor surface is, so we don't know what she's worried about, or if the glass is going to break on the marble table. We don't know, but the truth is, you ready? He never touched the glass. He didn't knock anything over. And in the same frames, she could be approaching this in a completely different way. She could be saying, I love your playfulness. I love your self-control. You're playing like you're going to go for the glass, and you're very smart not to knock it over. You're being very careful, etc., etc. You're using your power. You're using your control. She could empower him by telling the truth, the real truth of the moment, not BS, forgive me, but the real truth of the moment. So we have the exquisite ability to play in that realm if we want to. And I think it fits Choose Love like a glove. Choose love like a glove. So I'm going to transport you by another story. So I ran a clinic for a while, and our receptionist was on vacation, and we took turns. I'm one of the people taking turns answering the phone. And the ridiculous part is the name of our clinic was Tucson Center for the Difficult Child. Hello, so the phone rings. Hello, sounds like a Monty Python. Hello, Tucson Center for the Difficult Child. And some people would hang up because, they realized they had the wrong number, and no further conversation required. And some people would say, can we make an appointment? But it just so happened in the time frame I answered the phones, a few people, like at least three people, said pretty much similar things. I got this kid who's really getting my goat. I got this kid who is not getting anything done, can't concentrate on their homework, their chores, their assignments, their responsibilities, and but then the other shoe dropped. And what drives me crazy is this same kid can sit behind one of these is it okay that I use the word dang? Sit behind one of these dang video games endlessly, and all they want to do is go level, 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 be the best in the world. How do you explain that? We need help. And I hadn't quite framed it that way before, but it really fit what I do and what I've been teaching. And I thought about, I wasn't a fan of video games. I'm not a fan of video games. I don't play really. I've experienced it. I've witnessed video game playing a bit. I've seen that. I've seen kids throw themselves into that enterprise. I've seen adults do it. I've seen the excitement. And what dawned on me at some point is, oh, video games have this programming that matches what kids need to compel them, to set them free in a way and compel them. Please understand, I'm not recommending video games. There, some of them, the last I saw a while ago, they were insane and they were violent, and that's not the point. But something consistent in the programming inspires kids, it motivates kids, it compels kids to greatness. And I'm going to try and explain. So I think the games make total sense in a logic that differs from normal, conventional, traditional methods of education and parenting. And the incentives are different and stronger. The rules are clearer and stronger. And together, that forms a structure. The consequences are clear and stronger, and together it forms a structure that is a formula for successfulness. So I'm gonna bring it together by putting myself in the story. So imagine right now I'm playing one of these games. And while I'm playing it, the game is, while I'm getting towards the goals, while I'm tracking in the right direction, while I'm not breaking rules, the game is kind of in my face, confronting me with my successfulness in some energetic forms, score, bells and whistles, whatever. At any given moment, the game allows me the luxury of breaking rules. It doesn't interfere. It doesn't try and sway me. It gives me that freedom to break the rules. And if I do break a rule, even fractionally, like in sports, the game delivers. It doesn't look the other way and go, oh, poor Howie, he's having a bad day, or oh, let's not disturb him, he's having a good day. It always gives a consequence, and we look at these consequences and go, yikes, blood spurting, heads rolling, bombs bursting, awful. But really, excuse me, really, how drastic was the consequences when who's back in the game in 2 seconds? Even if the game's over. So kids, game in and game on is so powerful that game off, game out is powerful. And 2 seconds actually to the kid feels like an eternity. The game doesn't have some ancient way of formulating, oh, it's a 6-year-old, so it's 6 years, it's 6 minutes of timeout, or, he's 14 or she's 18, let's make the punishment commensurate. It's over quickly. And because it's accessible, and getting back in the game, even though it feels like a long time for the kid, they don't just come back. They come back with verve. They come back, almost like a declaration. I'm not going to break that rule again. I now know what that rule is. And they dive in, and all they want to do is go level, 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 which to me is code for greatness. They want to live their greatness. And the game promotes that. So kind of what I'm getting at is, with the right structure, kids can play live with the same zeal and accomplishment as they do in video games. And the structure helps them to thrive and flourish. Well, then you got to ask, what's the structure? I'm going to get to that as best I can. So I'm going to tell you one more story on the way to that. I think of it as the librarian story because, if I were in Connecticut or New Hampshire, or wherever you are, I would volunteer to do, an in-service if I could. That's my way of giving back. I run into somebody in education I work with, we're in the coffee line, and oh, I'm your principal now. Would you, how's your work going? Good. Would you like to have an in-service? So, so somebody took me up on it one day, and it's supposed to start at 3:15. I get there like 2-ish, and I've trying to figure out where I'm supposed to be, and I'm shown to the library, and there's two sections of the library. One big kind of industrial section that has, the big brown tables and the book stacks in the ordinary way. And then there's a section that's kind of warm and fuzzy for faculty meetings. And it's separated by bookshelves, but I could see through to what's happening on the other side. And there's currently a last class of the day. And as far as I can see, everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. They're working on, it looks like, projects, and they're a little bit collaborative, but a little bit independent, and it's all good. And there are two adults, I assume they're teacher librarians, in the front of the room. They're focused on what they're doing. Everybody's going around about their business. And at some point, something happens, something stirs. I didn't even know what it was. It was a very mild incident. But the first thing I saw was one of the adults gets up and starts making her way over to a table. I was curious where she's going. And first thing I saw was, it's easy to see. I'm looking at Shay. I could see a few people. I could see Julia. I'm sorry, you can't hide your kind lovingness, your loving kindness. Good luck hiding it. You can't stop it. It's who you are. So I'm looking at this person, and it was evident, loving and kind. And in a true to form, in a loving and kind way, she's making her way over to a table. And in a loving and kind way, she motions to a child to come hither. Can you hear the coyotes in the background? They're howling. And in a loving and kind way, the kid comes over, she puts her arm around him, she walks him over to the side of the room. Now they're just like in earshot of me. They don't notice me, but I could hear what they're saying. And in a very loving and kind way, this librarian is saying, in essence, come on, Alex, get your act together. But in detail, she said, I want, the coyotes are having a field day not far outside my door. So it's fun. So what the teacher says to the child is, I don't want you, please don't get distracted, and please don't distract others. This is a very important assignment, and a lot of your grade depends on it. You know the drill, like she explains, it's probably 2 minutes worth, and some poor desert animal is being gobbled up, I'm sure. That's what's happening. There's a party going on outside my door. So all this happens in a kind and loving way. And then, like, little sermonette is over, and she walks him back to his table and pats him on the shoulder and says, like some parting words, and then goes back to the front of the room, and she gets refocused on what she's doing. And within a few minutes, all hell breaks loose. Like, it's chaos. And I'll give you, I think some of you are from the East Coast, so I'll give you an East Coast reference. I worked my way through school driving cab in New York City. My first weird thought was, wow, she should work on Madison Avenue. What do I mean by that? Well, she could be making the big bucks because she's gifted at marketing and advertising. And, if you get the reference, I'm going to explain, is what was she advertising? Well, number one, kind of hidden, is you're invisible when things are going well. I mean, she doesn't have to say that. I mean, she's probably not wanting to do that, but that's the energetic truth. And the second energetic truth is when you're problematic, I show up. Even a little bit of problematic, I show up. And I not only show up, I show up with my loving kindness. So I don't want her to stop being kind and loving. Please hear that deeply. I want her to be loving and kind, but I want her to be really choosy when the love is flowing. I want her to choose love when it's aligned with what the desired effect is, not in a manipulative way, but because she cares. I don't want her to give the gift of her when things are going wrong, because that, let's just say intense kids who are resisting, maybe it's true that the more intense we are, the more we crave connection. And if we wind up seeing that we get, in effect, I don't know if you've ever had dial-up, a lot, people younger than me on this call, but we've all had the experience of losing connection, and we probably all want better broadband. Kids discover they get essentially better broadband when things are going wrong. So if you mix into that equation that when things go wrong, you're not yelling or screaming, well, that's actually a reward of us. And loving kindness is a reward of us. So it created in the room among the, I'm gonna take a risk now and say the understudies, all the kids who are watching the main characters, all those who were hungering for connection, it was like a billboard sign in Times Square. I'm available. Here's how I'm available. Here's how I'm not available. Do the right thing, I'm unavailable. Do the wrong thing, I am. So I think it's important to, I'm not saying this to rain on anybody's parade. I'm saying this to inspire like moments of like, oh, I get it. I am, as I'm teaching choose love, I'm going to be careful how I'm choosing to love. And I want to hitch my wagon to the right moments in time, not inadvertently the wrong moments. So the piece of the puzzle I want, I got this from working with, for 6 years with the parents of first offenders who the court would say, we'll drop the charges if you go through this program. We were really successful, but I'm telling you, 6 years and probably 1,000 families, and never once on the first Saturday of 4 that they were hijacked into giving up their Saturday mornings, never did they come in and go, wow, we get to work with Howard Glasser for free. Never once. It was always a case of, why am I here? Why is this requirement on me? And so it wasn't a ready audience of people welcoming what I had to say. So I had to have this strategic way of like blending in stories with, what I was proposing and have it make sense. And what I saw over time, over and over and over again, is these parents who look craggly and probably had been accused by their neighborhood of not parenting well. How could you have a kid who's a first offender, whatever, fire starting and damaging goods and stealing and whatever crimes were. I would see that if I explained this well enough and I gave them a way out, that by week 2 or 3, they were extraordinary. It didn't take long, but they needed to be able to see through to the truth of what was going on. And then like change was easy. So I really came quickly to a place of, wow, there's no blame. The child's not the culprit. The teacher's not the culprit. The parent's not the culprit. The culprits, so to speak, are the methods we have at our disposal. That so many methods out there, normal, conventional, traditional, are inherently energetically upside down. So I don't think conventional transportation works for intense kids, and may not be a good fit for kids in general anymore. I don't know. But I know that when I was in treatment, when I was not in treatment, but when I ran a clinic, God knows, I need help. There, that I worked quite a bit with prevention, and I knew there were programs. I was in the room and hearing about descriptions about programs from other directors of agencies, and I had a pretty good sense of what, there was a handful of programs that were substance abuse prevention, and they, had some strong commonalities. We're going to help you we're going to help inform you to know what's out there. We're going to help you understand what the effects are and the dangers are. We're going to role play some scenarios. We're going to prepare you. And in my office, in my practice, I met plenty of kids who were barreling down the road of substance abuse, who had been through a lot of programs. And I'm going to tell you flat out, if a child doesn't, you cannot say no to drugs if you don't have anything to draw upon, if you don't have what I'm calling inner wealth. However, you may know nothing about drugs. You may have never been to a program or heard like details about what to be on the lookout for. But if you have inner wealth, then even under pressure, even though you might have to dig in, you have something to draw upon that gives you the strength to say no. So I'm a fan of methodology that will not just fix the problem, but build kids up in a way. And I know we're on the same page in that regard. We're about building inner wealth. And, it's not the 1% to the 99%, it's everybody can have inner wealth. Every kid can be an inner wealth millionaire, billionaire. So I know Nurtured Heart Approach has this namby-pamby name. Oh, the Nurtured Heart Approach. But really, it's a warrior approach. It's a truth-based approach. And it introduces the receiver and the giver to their humanity, who they really are as a great person. It gives a voice to their greatness. And it does call into question the energy of interaction. And, you know, the way I explain what it is now that I've led you into this, you know, moment is the core methodology, so to speak, has 3 stands. It's simple. I'll explain them a little bit, you know, I'm going to keep my eye on the time, one at a time. But for sake of this slide, the 3 are what you see: absolutely no, absolutely yes, absolutely clear. You know, when I went through grad school, everything was complex and you know, I actually studied with people who studied with people like Freud, and I was a wannabe intellectual, but I'm so relieved that I could teach something so utterly simple. I wasn't up to that task, so absolutely no. What I mean by that is I'm taking a stand. It's kind of like a refusal. I refuse to fall into the trap of giving energy to negativity. I'm going to see through that as best I can. I am going to avoid that as best I can. When I get to stand 3, you'll understand, I am going to call it if a line is crossed. But my absolutely no is, you know, I'm going to have a consequence, but I'm not going to give energy while I'm giving the consequence. And I'm going to be ever more talented as I go at not accidentally rewarding negativity with relationship, with connection. And you'll see how this comes together. Absolutely yes is my second stand. It's like I refuse to forget to see the truth of who you are. So let's say a kid looks like they're gonna explode, looks like they're gonna revolt, looks like they're getting teased and they're gonna do something, but they haven't. I want to, if I can, I want to see through that opportunity. You know, we have this moment. We could intersect with that moment by saying, here's how you choose in love right now. You may not want to hear this because I see how angry you are. You're handling your strong feelings well. That's you using your wisdom and your power. You look like you want to lash out, but you're not lashing out. Here's how that's choosing love. And you know, however you want to dial that in with the language you choose love. I hope to get to that at the end. It's a commitment to, I'm not going to just say good job and thank you. I'm going to explain. I'm not even going to explain and give evidence. Here's what I witnessed, and here's what that reveals to me about who you are. So I'm going to bring value in. I'm going to bring the child into values I'm going to penetrate the barriers by inserting them into the beingness of something, you know, rich, like, you know, here's the courage you're showing right now. Here's the compassion you're showing right now. Where this kind of calls for, really, it's a different way of being confrontational. It's a different way of being in a kid's face. I'm going to make this my mission to bring forward. I'm not going to wait till problems happen. If they happen, I'm going to be there in the way I need to be there, but I am going to go out of my way to bring, in this case, the Choose Love curriculum in the expanded way. I'm going to bring that forth. I'll show you a video. And I'm going to nurture firsthand experiences of success. So here's an administrator of a school, I think a vice principal, and you may not be able to hear it super well. It has a mind of its own, but there is subtitles you could read.
saw your name came up and you started interacting with them, but you were telling them to just stop what they're doing, stop the drama, and that it was getting annoying, and it really seemed to quiet down after you did that. It really showed that you're a strong advocate for those guys making better decisions, and you really quiet down that drama. It's a lot of risk taking right there for you to step up and say what you think. And not a lot of people do that on Facebook, so more people like you really help alleviate the drama. So don't stop speaking up when you see that there's something going on that's disrespectful on the Facebook. It just shows that you're really someone who will take initiative, and I just appreciate that about you. Okay, thanks, Shepard. See you later.
So she's accusing him of choosing love. You know, she's not saying those words. And I don't know if you always say those words along with you know, she's talking about risk taking in a positive way, the courage it takes to stand up to, you know, what's annoying and what's not okay and what's unkind. It's exactly what we want to do. So I think we in general need new ways of being positive, that we may not have the luxury of old ways. Here's why. You know, think of a 4-year-old on an outing with you know, a guardian or a parent, grandparent, you know, and they're at the store and they're shopping and the parents just innocently going, please don't touch that. Hands to yourself. Please stay near me. Don't wander off, and etc. Leave that alone. Stop that. Cut it out. Quit it. And I could tell you, having been that kid, just a kid with a lot of intensity, exploring the world, but the normal ways land as something's wrong. You've done, you know, you know, there's a criticism that comes through the wires, even though it's innocent. And there, over time, there's an accumulation of that energy. And on the inside, kids can become impervious to thank you, good job. Because on the inside, they're going, no, that's not true about me. I'm not a good kid. I'm always getting in trouble. I'm sure you've all run into that. Let's call it resistance, part of the title. Have you ever been told you look nice on a day you don't feel you look nice? To what extent do you embrace that? You know, do you go like, oh, yay, it contradicts what I was thinking, or, you know, you get defended on the inside. You go, no, you can't possibly be seeing me. I'm a mess. So I'm really saying the same thing. Kids could be defended against what we say. So I think we need a stronger way that breaks through the ice, that gets to them, that kind of inserts them into the beingness of a trait, that helps them to see themselves maybe not as the bad kid or even the good kid, but the great kid with great things to contribute. I'm going to keep going. I have a few more minutes worth. So stand 3 is here's how I'm going to, you know, here are the rules. And here's what happens when you break a rule. I'm never going to look the other way. It's like sports. And it's not going to be a consequence. Remember the logic of the video game. Always delivers. But I want a consequence that's not going to be a big deal. It's easy. It's over with in a second. That's, you know, like you cross the line, you roll your eyes, reset. I turn away. I unplug me. I'll talk about that in a second. And then on the heels of that, I turn back because there's a new truth. And I turn back and say, now you're not rolling your eyes. You might still be upset with me and frustrated about the decision I made, but you're not rolling your eyes now. And that's respectful. That's a way of choosing love. So I'm playing hardball. I'm telling you that I'm fighting for kids' lives. I see this as a heart attack with difficult kids because, you know, the system is loaded with difficult kids. The system, you visit a prison, everybody's been a kid who was difficult on medication. It's not an answer. So here's a way of like, so I work with a really smart family, 2 professors, PhDs, and I was explaining all this to them, and they looked at me when I said, you know, their kid tantrumed like crazy, and he'd go from 0 to 60 quick. He was just like a 2-year-old, but they were really concerned that he was on the spectrum because he didn't have any words. His language was whining. And they believed in unconditional love. Good. So when he whined and would go, oh, they'd pick him up and love on him. And he unfortunately was getting an insanely upside down message energetically. So they didn't, I said, do you like him whining? Do you want him to whine? No. Do you want him to stop whining? So it's explaining the reset. I said, it's really simple. When he's not whining, go to town. Appreciate him. Show your gratitude. Are you grateful when he's not whining? Yes. Okay, show that gratitude. Put it into words. Talk over his head. Say it's compassionate. Say it's, you know, thoughtful. Say it's kind, whatever. If he looks at you funny, explain it as best you can. Just give a lot of energy to his good decisions. And when he does whine, even a little bit, say the word reset and instantly unplug. And they didn't get it. So I happened to be in their home, and there was I'm gonna take the risk of saying, fancy ass toaster on the counter. It was fancy. I had never seen a toaster like this. And, you know, so let's pretend this toaster is best toaster ever, ever, ever. It will butter your bread. It will grind your coffee beans. It intuitively knows when you're going to wake up. It's always going to deliver nuances of the toast that are just the way you were dreaming of. And, you know, it's timed, so its arrival is perfect timing every time, has a mind of its own. And when the toaster is unplugged, and I said this because they were devotees of unconditional love, when the toaster is unplugged, it's still the best toaster ever. It just doesn't work for that until it's plugged back in. I followed with the words, you're the toaster. When, you know, and then I explained again, you know, when the timing is everything, you know, when the whining's happening, when the tantrum's happening, just simply say, reset, unplug. But as soon as the whining stops, that's what you want. That's what you desired. So rejoice in that. Show your love. Be there. Praise that. And to their credit, they did it at a pretty super high level. And this kid was so challenging in the beginning because he gave him a run for the money. But I'm just going to say, I'm not saying this is the norm, but 2 or 3 weeks later, this kid had a whole host of words. He had a language of whining, and it worked for him. Why use words? He could read the energy of the room and know people were frustrated that he wasn't using words. You know, they fell in a trap of, come on, use words. I know you could do it. And it was more energy for negativity. Now they were just like wildly happy they was using words. Julie, if I go 5 more slides, do I have the time to do that? Okay. So I'm going to illustrate this whole thing, where the stands come together. So you could see him regrouping, can't you? Instantly. Poor guy. And then regroup. He's going to give it another whirl. Luckily, the filming stops after this next one. It's like a tantrum doesn't count unless somebody's watching. So these parents are probably got advice to ignore, but I could bank on the fact that prior to that, he had formed an energetic impression that if he whines, he's going to get the gift to them. And that, you know, now they're thwarting him by they're ignoring him. And he's pulling out all the stops. This is not going to change anytime soon. So the case I'm making is the normal form of ignoring is not the same as stand one. Stand one, stand two, and stand three in concert together would have looked differently. I'll explain what if I was advising the parent, is when the whining happens, say the word reset, unplug, like the toaster, unplug the gift of you, and be poised for the moments that follow, because what you really want is him not melting down, is not having a fuss. So as soon as that's true, I want to work with the truth. So the fuss is happening. I have a rule: no meltdowns, no whatever the rule is, and so a toe on the line is a toe on the line. Reset. I'm gonna unplug, but as soon as the rule isn't being broken, I'm gonna turn and say, your reset's over. Thank you for doing your consequence. I want him to believe, like in the video game, that he's had a consequence. And then I want to say, now you're not breaking the rule. Now you're not whining. That's where I want to teach. And then I could bring in any of the choose love vocabulary. Then I could accuse him thusly of choosing love in all these various ways. And then I can rejoice in his wisdom, his kindness, his compassion, whatever it is that is occurring. It's like I want to harness the energies of the moment, the truth of the moment, and really show up in that way. So I'm gonna work towards the end. To me, at some point, he gains access to the new truth. Is there's no longer anything to be gained by breaking a rule. You know, however long he's been mining it. In this case, it's an infant. You know, if it's a 14-year-old, you know, they've been going down that mine for a long time, and there's pretty much gold in them their hills. You know, he winds up getting the girl, a boy winds up getting relationship vis-a-vis negativity. I want them to arrive at a new conclusion. Nah, not true anymore. We're the proving point. We have to live that out for them to arrive at that. And that I want them to see the big responses, and now only for the positive, the gift of us is for what's right and what's not wrong. And then breaking a rule only gets a true consequence, not a payoff. And at some point, you know, I personally, in my practice, for the time being, once the 3 stands are in play, I want kids to break rules because I want them to discover the new truth. And at some point, you could see these kids who have folded their intelligence and intensity into being oppositional and defiant, that they and resistant. And it's almost like at some point the new reality dawns on them and they go, yeah, that's boring. I don't want to go down there. It's like the boring toy. The change is now negativity has no traction. And now they come out and look for a new place to play. But what I've seen over and over again, the academic achievement and the accelerated path is beautiful because now they have their intelligence free and their intensity free to pour into it. So these kids become the best kids from my point of view. You know, I have two more slides that, and then I want to kind of bring it together with Choose Love. This is like a 2 or 3 minute video, so I know I'm going to go for it because this is good. Because I think what we want is this. We want kids to have their own.
You know that thing I do where I give resets?
Yeah.
So do you remember when I first started giving you resets, what that was like for you?
Yeah, I was like, I had to get like 5 before I would stop.
And what would you say when I give you a reset? Don't say the words right now, but do you remember what kinds of things you would say?
Yeah,
Pretty tough.
they were pretty hardcore.
And how did you feel when I first introduced the idea of resets?
I just thought they were just a piece of
Uh-huh. And now when I give you a reset, even if I know it's something you don't want to do, or if it's a behavior you're having a good old time with and you don't want to stop, you do stop. And you do listen and you do follow my instructions. So I'm curious about that, how that feels now when I give you a reset and you kind of go through the process of doing it.
Yeah.
So tell me about it.
At first I was like, it had to get like 5 or 6.
To make a difference?
Yeah, and then it started going down to 3, then 2, and now it's just like 1 or none.
You're right, like one reset is all it takes.
Either that or I just stop.
You reset yourself. You realize you're resetting yourself.
Yeah.
Bingo. I dare say that's what we want, that kids can reset. It's not like evaporating their impulsivity or their intensity or their, their humor that wants to spark a little, thing in the classroom. It's just that they can internally manage it the way we've always dreamed of, where they reset. Isn't that the way we go through life? We may have the urge to blurt something out or say something like, wow, and maybe there's a time and place to blurt something out, but by and large, it seems to go better when we can restrain ourselves. So last part is, it's going to be 8 billion people soon, like really soon. It's this year or early next year. Statistically, unfortunately, mathematically, with a planet of that size, there's going to be 150 to 200,000 people a day passing away. And I'm going to back up for a second. We in our society give lip service to positive, and I don't doubt for a second you guys are fantastic at it. But in general, think of a local news station, and this is going to correlate to Choose Love and how Scarlett formulated this and the horrible circumstances. But news stations here in Tucson recommit themselves again and again and again to, we're going to do showcases of so-and-so great person in town who's doing these great things, great initiatives, great people. And they do it for a while, but as soon as something horrifying happens or tragic happens, it's scrolling 24/7. We are, and then it's hard to go back to the good news stories. And it might be, months that roll by before that happens. But when push comes to shove, it's the tragedies that captivate people and sell and keep people looping around in the reel of what's going on. So we need a game changer, and the part about people passing away is, think about all the memorial services that are going on each and every day. And I've with COVID, I've attended a handful of online memorial services in the last few years, and it never fails that people are lined up at the mic to speak about that person's greatness. What a sense of humor she had. I'm so fortunate I got to know that part of her, and she was never without a joke or never without a light side of things. Or that person was so compassionate. Let me tell you a story. I mean, it's not just a trait, it's an elaboration. How many of those people who pass away and have memorial services on each and every day ever hear a word about their greatness while they're alive? We're masters of great. We're generally speaking masters of not great, and as well as masters of great when it's too late. I think we have the opportunity to confront kids with who they really are, not just the surface of, I like your hair today. Yeah, that's fine and dandy. Or your outfit today, or your, I want to be able to see into, I want to be able to have the lenses to see into the courage. You could have retaliated when those kids picked on you. You had courage to walk away. That was wisdom. That was you using your power. That was you being compassion in action. Or Julia, here's how you welcome me in today. And here's how you set this up with such a nurturing feel to it. You were choosing love again and again and again in the way you set this up, and in the gratitude you showed in the introduction. I couldn't have felt more welcomed in. And then just have our own ways, our very unique ways, because nobody could do anything the same way as anybody else. Anyway, here's the ways you're choosing love. That is choosing love. It's not a question of whether you can or can't. You are choosing love. That's the place. That's the working edge for me. That's the place that builds inner wealth. That's the investment I want to make. That's where I want to dial in, so kids leave through the channels we have access to them, and they grow in their strength, and they have a better ability to say no when we want them to say no, and to say yes when it's a positive opportunity. That's a function of inner strength, and we all have that ability to do it. And I'm in awe that the Choose Love movement just takes that on all barrel, just full speed ahead. And just I may be missing the boat, but I just see how the nurtured heart approach just fits together with this. And I hope you can see the beauty of the points I'm making, and the interesting, maybe crazy point of view that tries to dissect the truth of the moment and take advantage of that. So thank you so much. And let's take questions, or however you want to handle that, Julia. You're so wise.
You're so wise, Howie. Thank you so much for this wonderful webinar. Yes, we'll just open the floor up if anybody has questions for Howie at this time on just any of the information he so graciously and beautifully shared with us today. You can feel free to just come off of mute or chat in the box. Any questions, comments? Lots of beautiful content you shared with us. We can feel you. I could feel your passion, Howie, for this work, and it does work so well together. The nurtured heart approach really is what choosing love is. And so thank you so much for your time. I'm just going to drop a few things in the chat, you know, just and I'll put, Howie, if it's okay, if I could put your website on in the chat.
Absolutely.
So people want to get in contact with you. So
Absolutely.
I'll drop that right there. And then also just thank you everybody for attending. We'll still welcome some questions if there are some, but we just really are grateful for you to spend your evening with us. We know all of our time is precious. And so thank you for just.
Can I say something, Julie, that might be helpful? Is I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, my day started at 3 a.m. and it's 6:20 here. And I've been teaching the lion's share of that. And I could choose an internal version of love. We as human beings have that option. You know, I can like, oh, why did I ever agree to do this talk on a day that I'm teaching my certification training? And like, what, well, you know, I could beat myself up, but I can also like use stand one there if that were overflowing in my direction. I could reset myself. And I don't want to step over that line. And then I could take the same energy that's getting crisscrossed and I could fold it into, I want to honor myself. Here's how I'm being forgiving. Here's how I'm being self-healing. Here's how I'm taking good care of myself, drinking water, not ashamed to cough when I need to cough. Here's how I'm being encouraged of gratitude. We could do this internally for our own sake too. I'm glad I've remembered to say that. Sorry for interrupting you.
No,
you're very kind to allow me to be interruptive.
Oh, thank you. Well, Howie, as you were saying, I'm just the fact that you were able to just so beautifully share what you shared tonight, and especially after having full long days of your training week and starting so early in the morning, we're just so grateful. I see lots of beautiful comments coming in. Just thank you. You gave words that people need to speak to others and even their own workforce about some intense situations that are going on, and just people sharing fantastic mindset, great way to shift perspective. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Joe.
I'm reading hearing too.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yes, and I love Kathleen's analogy, and nurturing heart approach and choose love go together like peanut butter and chocolate. Isn't that great?
That's really good.
Oh, this is so great. Yes. And I, was teaching today too. And it's just a great reminder to us too, just how we want to approach certain challenges, and with a nurtured heart, with the choose love formula. And so just thank you for all these beautiful reminders. I'm going to also put in the chat here, just all of you, the rest of you that joined us today, please understand all of our Choose Love resources are free. So feel free to check it out at chooselovemovement.org. And we want all of this to be for free because we believe there should be no obstacles to choosing love. And therefore we rely though on the support of our community. And so in the chat, you'll see a couple links. One is for if you feel inclined to support the movement with a donation. Also, there's a shop where you can check out some items and some other professional development that we offer to schools. So I'm going to put that in the chat right now as well. And you will be getting an email from our team coming out in the next day, just as a thank you, and with these links as well, So once again, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Howie. We appreciate just you so very much.
I'm going to assume you're welcome. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity. And I'm going to assume that it's a given that people are here because there are intense kids on the East Coast. And that you're thanks for being open to the possibilities of fresh points of view. Hopefully something I said has
Yeah.
that freshness and inspiration in it. So it's been beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. You are an inspiration, Howie. We appreciate you so much. All right. Take
you.
care. Thank you
Bye,
so much.
everybody.